And I think that's only growing at a pace called AI, which is a whole new thing in front of us that will challenge humanity at a rate greater, in my opinion, than humanity has ever been challenged before. So the need for centeredness, the need for Jesus, the need to have these things that we've talked about, habits in our lives, and centeredness on those type things, and ability to find silence and solitude and understand Sabbath, like that is going to be more important now than ever, because I think humanity is going to be challenged more than we have ever seen
I agree.
in the history of our day, with the technology that is coming into reality today.
Well, welcome to this month's Wider Lens podcast. Today, my special guest is Terry Stewart. Terry is a pastor. He's a technology strategist. He's a global ministry leader who has spent decades helping build platforms that serve millions of people all around the world. Terry's been a leader at Life Church and a key in the development of the YouVersion Bible app. He's been at the intersection of faith, leadership, and digital innovation. Beyond titles and accomplishment, he is a thoughtful voice on identity, responsibility, and the human side of leading in a fast-moving world. Today, we're stepping back to explore not just what he's built, but what he's learned along the way. Terry's a longtime friend, and I'm so honored to have him join us today. Well, Terry, welcome to the Wider Lens podcast, and I'm so glad that you could join me today. You and I've got a long history, and I've so grateful for the friendship and the time we spent together in the past, how helpful you've been to me, and so the just who you are, and that's really what I wanted today. Just we tied it a bigger life than the work with Terry Storrs, because I've always seen that in you, and I think it's something that is hard for a lot of us to get to, because we get caught up in what the world tells us we need to be doing and all those other things that enter in. So thanks for being here.
Of course, Dr. Kim, thank you so much for having me. And like you said, man, we've known each other a really long time
We
and done some
have.
great stuff together. And I've learned so much from you, and so grateful for you, and just your ministry and your work. And so this is a pleasure. So I'm excited about this
Thank you.
conversation, and being a part of this.
I feel the same way, and thank you again. So first question, kind of just when you
Yeah.
meet someone for the first time, what do you hope they notice about who you are before what you've done? Because
Yeah.
you got a wall full of things that you've done.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think, at different journeys in my life, you ask that question, and I think it would look a lot different.
Sure.
Today, it'll probably show up in this podcast quite a bit. A huge influence in my life is a guy named Dallas Willard,
Yeah.
and there's a statement that Dallas Willard made that is just central to who I am. And he says the main thing that God gets out of your life is not the accomplishments; it's the person you become. And it's just at the center of my being today, and I can honestly say that's newer for me. Probably in the last 5-7 years that I've really embraced that. And so your question kind of falls right in that. It's that, man, I hope people. Um, I hope people see the person I am becoming, and Christ in me, um, as much, if not way more, than the amazing things that I've been able to be a part of. I don't discount the things I've been able to be a part of and some of those accomplishments. But as you know, if our identity gets wrapped up into those
Yeah.
accomplishments and and those things that we do, it can really take root and kind of cause challenges in our life. And so yeah, for me, it's just that journey of who I am becoming,
Hmm.
and ultimately more and more like Jesus, and doing more things like him, which means loving my neighbor and loving those around, and trying not to be critical and judgmental, and just loving. And so I hope that's what people see, in me,
Yeah.
and areas we've talked a lot about in marriage. Hope people see that in me as a husband, and how I treat
Yeah.
my wife, and how I parent my kids. And so that's what I hope that they see, and
Yeah.
see something a little bit different.
That's so good. Dallas Willard was just a mentor to so many people, me
Hmm.
from a real distance, but just, gosh, so much wisdom that he gave us. And so, yeah,
Hmm.
I think it's just as you're talking through there, it's just I just think I'm working on a book now, and we're just talking about all the things that the world uses to distract us, and probably the enemy is behind all that, I think.
Hmm.
But it's to stay focused on Jesus and knowing that he is the audience, the one we want to please. Uh,
Hmm.
but there's so many things that pull at us the other way and try to
Yeah.
pull us away from that. And you and I both seen great men that have fallen into that and
Hmm.
has never it never turns out good.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
It
just
doesn't.
no at all.
It doesn't. Yeah, the things of this world, not all evil, not all bad, but just the things of this world, are just alluring, and they draw us to those, and kind of pull us off, kind of pull us off center, if you will. I was reading through Psalms 1 this morning, and was listening to a podcast that drove me there, and the thematic of the first three things, that interestingly, the way to be blessed, Psalm 1 opens up with three things not to do. And number one, it goes walk, stand, sit, and gives
Mm,
three things that as we're walking through life, which is their habits and the rhythms and all of those, if they're not pointed in the right direction, we're gonna be walking in the wrong direction. Then we're gonna stand. So then we stop in that posture in the things that aren't the right. And then we sit in it. And it says we sit with the mockers. And so it's this three-step rhythm of the way not to be the blessed, and to do
yeah.
the things of Jesus. And that was just interesting of that walking, which are those rhythms and those habits. And if those aren't pointed towards Jesus, away from this world, and to keep us centered, we're going to drift into those wrong ones, and we'll walk with the wrong people, and then we'll just hang out with them, and then we'll just sit and revel in all the wrong things. And so yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think so many times we think, well, I'm a believer. I can do that. I'll pull them up. But it seems, in my experience and other people's, 99% of the time, they pull us down. We
They
kind of,
do. They do.
it just happens. And so I don't think I figured out quite a while ago, maybe 15 years ago, that that really wasn't what God wanted me to do.
Mm,
There's other, let other people evangelize, whatever with
mhm,
that. But I can get caught up and I've got to stay focused on Him. And you
mm.
use the word habit. And I think for me, I was thinking this morning, I was going through my quiet time. So I wasn't totally focused on it today. But I also thought, but I got to do this. For me, not because
Yeah.
God is saying, did he check, asking somebody to check and see if I did my quiet time today? No, it's because I need that. Even if I'm not as focused some days as I am other days,
Mm,
I just need to know that I made that connection with the Lord
so good.
first thing in the morning.
Yeah,
And that carries me through most days
it
because of
does.
that. So,
It
so
does.
I think the idea of making things a habit, people are watching us, listening to us, of just deciding some of those things that will make a difference and making them a habit. Just
Yeah.
put it on, for me, a lot of things, it's putting on schedule.
Yeah.
We have a date night and we have a date lunch. It's on my schedule every week, just
Yeah.
like this, just like other things. And I think it's made a difference because one, I'm aware of it. Two, I look forward to it. And three, it was on the schedule. I, I don't let
Yeah.
anything bump it,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
I'm
know.
the same. I'm the same way. Um, I can't speak for women, but as a guy, what I mean, just that wired to work, wired to navigate that, wired to operate through a calendar. All of those things become so easy for me. And kind of like you, like years ago, a deep mentor of mine, just like was coaching me through that. He's like this area of your life called work, you just have down, and you've got all these habits. Why you're not using those same tools to help your marriage and to help those? And I'm like, duh. And so, like you, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, I am going to use my calendar to put a date night on it. I am going to use my calendar, to remind me, to just send a nice, beautiful, loving text message to my wife. I'm going to use my like all of those
Right.
things. It's like, oh, schedule it. Like, looky there. And then ta-da, things just kind of start clicking. And yeah, so same thing.
Yeah.
It's on the calendar, it's on the schedule. Um, and then they kind of become rhythmic. And many of those I don't need to schedule anymore. Like right on the other side of this monitor is my chair, and that is where I start my morning every
Yeah.
day. And I have a place, and I got a space. And I don't have to schedule that anymore. It's years and years
You
and
just
years
do.
of just rhythm and doing that. And so yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was telling Nancy, I talked about the other day, and I said, if I couple times that I've had something to do really quick, and so I'd go out and do that, and then come back quiet time. I said I kind of felt like I was naked the whole time till I got
Mm,
back to my chair
mhm,
and spending
mhm.
my time with the Lord. And
Yeah,
so that's what I wanted. I wanted it to be
yeah,
something that was such a part of me that it felt different if I didn't do
yeah,
it instead of feeling different if I did do it.
yeah.
You know.
So good, so good. I get it.
So in seasons, we talk about
Mhm.
seasons in our life. You're making some changes, and so what
Yeah,
season are you in right now?
yeah. This is so fun. I've really become a student over these last couple years. Of what some language calls kind of first half of life, second half of life.
Yeah.
And there's a handful of books that I've really dove off into, and feel like I'm 52, and so kind of square well into, kind of that midlife, if you will. And um hindsight has helped me see, Dr. Kim, that I feel like it was about 5 or 6 years ago of the quiet invitation from the Lord to step into the second half of life,
Ah,
and to enter that season. I didn't fully understand it. I was still, um kind of fighting some of those first half of life tendencies of again what I talked about, some identity
yeah.
and achievement type things. Those were still a little bit more apart. But that invitation started about 6 years ago. That I look back on some of my writings. I look back on some of the things that I was feeling a little bit of that. I wrote about the hamster wheel. I wrote about, just that going and going and that high RPM life and all of those type
Mhm.
things, which wasn't, fulfilling me anymore. There was so many times of in my 20s, 30s, and even 40s of just that entrepreneur, hyper fast move, move, move,
Sure.
just, what used to fuel me, I was finding myself more empty by it, if you will,
Mm.
and it
Yeah.
not doing that. And so So I think that I am square in the middle of a season, as Buford would call halftime,
Yeah.
and kind of rolling into that second, that second half of life. And what he talks about is, you know, moving, um, moving into significance, and again, that's away from those achievements and those type things, and um, other language that more Christian-ish authors would talk a little bit from is, there's a book called Falling Upward, where Richard Rohr talks about the first half of life, which is a really good thing, and he talks about ego as a very positive thing. Is that first half of life is really about understanding who God made us to be, and he talks about building our box, and we've got to spend a significant amount of time understanding, God, who have you made me to be, and building our
Mm,
box, and knowing who we are in Christ and all of that. But the trap in that first half of life is never stop building. The
mm,
the jump into the second half of life is becoming content with that box, and then living from that box, no
oh,
longer
that's
having to
good.
build it and living from it. And so I really feel, like the season for me is fully into that second half of life and living from that box, and kind of taking all of these gifts and these talents and these experiences that the Lord has allowed me to be a part of. And now my role is to invest and share those with others,
Uh,
and pour into others, and less about, less about, my own gains, and more about how do I share those with others. And the beauty of what, of that, when we serve others we end up serving ourselves,
yeah.
and there's so much fulfillment from that. And so that's what a lot of, I feel like the Lord is deeply been inviting me into. And this transition is all about that for me, and stepping fully into that.
Yeah, that's so good. I read Buford's book about that's what I was trying to just
Yeah.
think here, probably when I was about your age.
Yeah.
And, and just, I think for me, it helped me realize, okay, I'm kind of fighting going into this a little bit. And I think it helped me with more of an acceptance of, okay,
Mhm.
let's look at things and what does God want for me moving forward,
Yep.
which,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
it's good,
And
it's good.
yeah,
Arthur
I think,
Arthur C. Arthur C. Brooks, he's a Harvard professor and a CNBC contributor, writes in New York Times. He's Catholic, a wonderful Christian guy. Wrote a book called Strength to Strength. And for those maybe listening to this podcast that are in their 40s, 50s, and beyond, what he takes it more, clinical, of just how our brain chemistry works and the biology
mhm,
first. And anytime I recommend the book, I said, okay, you're going to be sort of depressed reading the first two chapters. Keep going, because the first two chapters really describe, the diminished capacity of our brains,
mm,
and the speed in which our brains work, and how we operate, and how there is no way around it, that our brains are going to slow down. And he talks about moving from fluid intelligence to crystallized intelligence. And in those earlier seasons of our lives, we can click and we can run, and our brains operate so fast. But if we don't figure out how to jump the rail from crystallized, or from
mhm,
fluid to crystallized, we're going to get trapped into that space, and our brains can't process like that anymore. And so he
so
really
good.
helps us, and helps the readers see that, and then jump to a new rail of crystallized intelligence, which is all of the experiences, all of the knowledge that we've gained over those years,
Yeah.
and how to leverage that, and jump into that. And so it's a different vocabulary, a different way to think about first and second half, from more of a biological and a brain,
Hmm.
brain and science side, which is another great way, to think about it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. That makes so
Mm,
much sense. And I think just for us just to realize that, there are seasons and God takes us from season to season. And I went through a season, so God doesn't want me to repeat that season.
mm,
Probably and doesn't want me to prolong it or drag it out longer than He wants me to. And so I
yeah,
think just always being open. Okay,
yeah,
where am I right now,
yeah,
realistically, and what's God telling me right now?
yeah. I think it's so good. I think it's so good. Yeah.
And so, we talked earlier about accomplishments and things like that. Uh, I want to talk a little bit about just kind of when you were in those seasons.
Hmm.
What did it feel like maybe the first time that you realized people were being affected by your decisions
Mm,
as a leader?
mm,
It's
mm.
it's a difference. When I was just
Yeah,
doing something on my own, it was like, well, if I screw up, I screw up, I can fix it. But then
yeah,
when you realize, oh my gosh, there's a lot of people affected by the decisions I make. So
yeah.
how did you navigate that?
Yeah, 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 yeah. A couple things come to mind. One early in kind of my career as a leader, if you will. It's going to sound so basic, but it just is what hit me is, um, as a leader, when you wake up and you recognize that you are directly impacting the lives of those people that you lead, that hit me so hard when I had to fire somebody, when I had to release
Ah,
them, and you just come to grips with the fact that decisions that I am making and things that I am leading this organization or this team through, I am directly impacting a human.
yeah,
And that just hit me like a ton of bricks. And once I saw that, I couldn't unsee that. And then you see it everywhere. You see the decisions and how I'm running a team, how I was running a business at the time, how I was running all of those of that every step of the way that and decisions that I am making are impacting these human lives.
mhm,
And that didn't sit well with me at the beginning. That was like
yeah,
hard to, hard to navigate. And I remember like coming home and having that discussion with my wife. And again, it seems so basic, but like I remember it like it was the first time, and it was like I've gotta get better.
mm,
Like, I've gotta raise my game, because if I'm making these bad decisions, these lives are at stake,
yeah,
are at stake around me. And so that's one of the first things that came to mind with your question, from that standpoint.
sure,
And and that now as a leader, I still feel that, but I kind of flip it today. And what I mean by flip it today is I think one of the the greatest things that leaders have, and what they have to steward, is the ability to to take someone that they're leading and see untapped potential, or see something in them and draw it out,
mm,
and call them to a new place in themselves, and to help them become the person that God has put inside them. And
yeah,
I think that is the core component that a leader has, of that. How do they see that? How do they steward those gifts and those skills that God has placed inside of that human, and what can I do as a leader to see that and draw
Mm,
that person to become all of what, not what I want them to be for my selfish reason, but all of
sure.
what God wants them to be. And if they do that, then they are going to be the greatest team member that they could be if they're living fully into their potential of what God's
Yeah.
placed inside of them. And so,
Oh, yeah. That makes so much. Yeah, I think so. I worked with a guy a few years ago, and in one of his jobs, he was in a big company. Was He was the one who had to fire people,
mm,
and he came to me because he said, I've done that. Okay, I've never liked it, uh, but this guy I've got to fire next week. He's a friend.
mm,
He's somebody
mm,
that I've spent time with, and he was just struggling with
yeah.
that because he did know the ripple effect that was going to
Hmm.
happen and things like that. So I think some of those, you're right, and so helping build into people, helping them
Hmm.
become who God wants them to be is such an important part, I think, of what
Yeah.
we do. It's not just telling people what to do.
Yeah.
It's what impact does God want me to have?
Mm,
How does God want to use me in their lives? I guess,
hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
and to be
Absolutely.
aware of that. And some
Yeah.
people that's easier to do with than other people.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, you're right. We steward a lot, and
Yeah.
some folks are easier to lead than others, and all of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think I think it's the gift and privilege that a leader has, and we've got to steward that well.
Yeah. I want to touch just a second on what you did for years, and that's YouVersion.
Yeah.
And you watched it grow from, I was telling some other day, the first time that I became acquainted to YouVersion was when we wrote the first marriage plan for YouVersion. And I
Yeah.
went out there, and the office was pretty
Yeah.
small, and there
It
weren't that
was.
many people there.
It
And
was.
we would sit down and kind of brainstorm ideas, and then I'd get me and my team, and we'd write something.
Yeah.
And so as that grew and it became
Mm,
something so big, how
hmm.
did you handle that? It was the pressure,
Yeah.
what came with that? Because obviously, to me, it's part of the Great Commission.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, and you're absolutely right. I remember it like it was yesterday that Apple released it for the
Mhm.
very first time on the iPhone, and it was one of the first 200 free apps
Yeah.
that came out, and that very first weekend, we saw 83,000 people download it, and our minds were blown. We're like, no way, like 83,000 people
Yeah.
on the first weekend downloaded it, and that just blew our minds. And it's just a handful of months ago, we got to celebrate the billionth download.
Yeah.
And so this journey from idea to 83,000 to a billion, um, and um, I think that the things that come to mind on that, Dr. Kim, are like never in our wildest dreams would we have ever imagined that, ever. And so there was a sense of awe and humility through it all,
Mhm.
to be honest. Um, and moments of like just kind of pinching yourself of like, is this real?
Yeah.
Um, but um, but I think what can accidentally happen, is only remember the good things, because it's kind of how our brain works, right? I
Sure.
think allowing myself to be honest in those journeys. I think there are plenty of times where it kind of starts feeling normal. You're just in it, and it's like, well, this is just what it is, and normal. And I think it's those moments that I'm grateful that I had an incredible mentor that I met with every 2 weeks, and I've been with him for almost 20 years now.
Wow.
So having the right people in your life to
Sure.
kind of shake you out of, hey, bro, there's nothing about this that's normal,
Yeah.
um, but it was an incredible ride. But I think a sense of awe, a sense of humility, a sense of there is no way the collective sum of intelligence of our team, and holy smokes, like we had some brilliant people
Yeah.
that dedicated their lives to this. So my statement that I'm about to say does not diminish any of their brilliance, because they're brilliant. um, but there is no way the collective sum of the brain capacity and the brilliance and all of that equates to the results. So there's
Mm.
something else at play that
Yeah.
is far beyond our human capacity to, to do. Um, and that was just that thing that I tried to stay centered on, of like,
Mm.
this is a God thing. And this is a gift from him. And yes, we are working very, very hard. And yes, we are bringing our whole lives to it. But the results and the outcomes of what we are seeing are only by God math, not by
Mm.
human, by human math. And that just kind of kept us in a sense of awe and humility, and gratitude, if you will, which was important, because there was lots of seasons, back on your seasons questions, of where, I mean, yes, it was a ministry. Yes, it was inside of church. Yes, all of that. But this was like your Silicon Valley entrepreneurial startup, that's
Yeah.
placed in the midst of all of that. And that works really hard. And that work is really taxing. And that work is, I mean, it's brutal at times.
Sure.
And so trying to stay humble and centered and keeping Christ at the center is key. Or it can chew you up and spit you out, because I mean, it's moving really fast.
Yeah.
And so yeah, those are things that were really, really important to stay centered on. To say that I got that right every day of my 19 years doing that would be a horrible misrepresentation of my journey. No, 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 not even close. Um, but I tried to get better a little bit every day, with that, and that was definitely part of my journey.
Yeah, and I think, and for people to know that it is hard. You look
Mm,
at the end result sometime and you think, "Oh, that's cool," but
yeah,
the work that I've seen you guys go through, and I think what a lot of people may not know is YouVersion app started after the YouVersion, webpage
yeah,
just didn't
yeah,
go anywhere.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
imagine
yeah,
when you guys saw 83,000 and a web page that just was just floundering,
yeah.
it's like, "Oh, this is what God wants us to do."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Speaking of that, I've got this little piece of art my team kind of created for me from years and years and years ago. I don't know if you can see it or not, but
Yeah.
this is all my
Oh my
hand
gosh.
sketches of when I drew out that original website on paper and pen,
Wow.
of like, what do we want that to be. And so they like took all of these
That's
sketches
cool.
and put them all together, for what became a failed website, that we pivoted from, and that God used all of those learnings from that failure to kind of set up, the launch of the app. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So failure, is an important part, is an important part of the story, and I think it's an
Yeah.
important part of life,
Absolutely.
that I don't know that gets enough, discussion. Our kind of Western, American view, like, wants to hear these stories and just think of this up and to the right, and
Right.
like, wow, just look at that. And I was, recently on vacation and doing a little bit of writing, and thinking about writing a reading plan, and kind of this just section that kind of I started writing, was kind of documenting a little bit of the story, and what
Hmm.
came out of me was la, la, like most people want to hear this as a growth story, as a development of a platform, as a development of this massive thing. And that's just not the honest story. The honest story of this journey for me is the over and over and over commitment to surrender, and to release it, and to know this is not mine, and to know that I'm not good enough to create. And it's this constant ask of surrender. Um, and that's the real story.
Yeah.
And I think that's the story of life, is that life is a season of wilderness after wilderness after wilderness, is because we're not in the garden yet.
Yeah.
There will be a garden time again,
Yeah.
and but until then, we're journeying through the wilderness. And there will be garden moments in that wilderness, but there is suffering, and there is
Yeah.
the elements of life, and there's beauty in those if we choose to look for it, and that we choose to find it. And that's the 19 years of it it now I look is beautiful, but holy smokes, it's wilderness, and it's hard, and there's sacrifice, and there's suffering, and there's all of those things that come, that come with it. And I wouldn't change any of it. But it is not an up and to the right, an up and to the
Yeah.
right reality. And so,
I think that if we, whatever we do, if we feel, whether it's in the secular world, whether it's ministry, I feel like if we know that that's where God put us, this is where God wants it, it's easier to persevere through those things you were
hmm
talking about. It's easier
hmm
to say, this is so hard, God,
yeah,
or
yeah,
do I really want to do this? But because, you're called to it, for me, it's
hmm
been, okay, if God called this, we're going to
yeah,
continue to go through that.
yeah,
But that doesn't mean it
yeah.
isn't hard.
No,
But I
that's
think
right.
if I felt God hadn't called me to something and it was hard, probably give up, or I'd
Yeah,
change
no
direction,
doubt, no
and,
doubt.
and with Him in it. And I think God's in everything we do. If we really look at it, if God's put
Mhm,
somebody in a business or a company
mhm,
or a CEO or whatever it is, and as a believer, believing that God put you there for a reason, then there's
mhm.
purpose every day,
No doubt,
even when it's
no
hard.
doubt. Even
Yeah.
even when it's hard, a thing that I, um, find myself, mentoring and coaching a lot of young, a lot of young leaders, and is I think, uh, I think a trap that our enemy sets for us, is when we accidentally combined our calling of like who God made us to be, the
Mhm.
experiences that He's allowed us to be a part of, and those talents and those gifts. And I put experiences in there, Dr. Kim, because I think that calling of who God made us to be changes over time, because our experiences change, and we
Sure.
expand over time. And so that calling expands, and it can do. um, but what I've recognized, and I saw this in my own life, through 30 years of ministry, um, when we accidentally combined our calling and our vocation, and lump those together, man, really disastrous things can happen. Because what
Mhm.
happens when I'm on the other end of those conversations and I get fired from a job? Whoa, whoa, whoa,
Mhm.
whoa. What God, did you call me here? And all of
Yeah.
those, or what? And and I can't remember who I heard this from, but it's not mine, so I don't want credit for it. But it's it's that importance of that calling and that vocation being two different things. God God calls us to do something, and then we get invited to use that calling into a vocation. and we
Mm.
get to choose of where do we want to use that. And then that's kind of how those two things work together. And so
I like
many
that.
people are gloriously called and equipped to use what God did in a corporate setting, in a secular setting, and they are making, honestly, more impact than those of us that just stare at Christians all around. And I don't get to be the light of Christ, to but they do,
Yeah.
in that way. And so yeah, that just came to me. Sorry to derail,
No,
but I think that's
no,
really
I
important to
think that
keep those two
makes
things separate.
absolutely. I think that's so good. There was a guy when I was in high school that was our school custodian,
Mm,
and that guy loved the Lord, but he loved us. It wasn't until years after I thought that guy he was using what God gave him, and
mhm.
he didn't mind that he was a custodian.
That's
To
right.
him, the calling was to be able to come into that school every day and care for people and make things nice for people
That's
and to
right.
speak to them. And he was just somebody everybody said hi to, everybody talked to him
Yeah.
because you could
Yeah.
just feel that he was a special person. And it just taught me that, oh my gosh, look for God's calling
Yeah.
people are using God's calling in so many different ways
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
so
It's
important
good.
that
It's
we
good.
don't always
And
see. Yeah.
so good. But back on that identity thing too, like if those two things came together and were merged, um, li- like our identity gets wrapped up in the wrong thing.
Mm.
And I had an amazing 19 years at Life Church and Version, and it was so beautiful. Um, but the Lord made it so abundantly clear that it was time to, that season had come to
To
an end.
yeah.
And since I had this healthy understanding of calling and vocation, as hard as that transition was, because decades of friendships and relationships, and I loved my job. I loved what I got to be a part of. But I do think one of the things that the Lord helped that transition with, is those things were separate, is that my calling hasn't changed. It's just God is asking me, and the words that I got, what was that I I was no longer to steward that role that I had at YouVersion, and He is calling me to something else. And I don't know what that is yet, and I'm excited to see what He reveals in it. But my calling hasn't changed. Who God made me to
Yeah.
be hasn't changed. He is just inviting me into a new place, and a new way of using that calling, that I'm excited for. So
Was that hard, Terry? Did you find yourself fighting it all the change or because pretty comfortable where you were?
yeah,
You know what
uh,
happens every day. You know the
yeah.
people you work with.
Mm, that the simple answer is yes. The story that my wife and I have had for 28 years of marriage is, she has more faith. She hears the Lord more, and definitely hears the Lord earlier than I do. Um, and so she heard the Lord before I did,
Mm.
around being invited into something new. Um, and as we were processing that, that was a challenge for me. And I kind of argued for a little while. And then what some super close friends to us, and my accountability partner and best friend for 19 years from being here, what they pressed into us, was just do a little more work in this space. And what the Lord revealed to me, um, is some areas in my life that had become idols, that I didn't want to admit were idols. And what those idols were exactly what you just said. I had come to idolize my own plan. I had a plan for my life that I loved. I loved what this plan was unfolding towards. And when I was invited into challenging that, and seeing that, What I would never say with my mouth and what I would never say intentionally was that, Lord, I trust you, but I actually really trust my plan more than yours. So,
Mhm.
so I'm going to do this. But that's where I was, and
Yeah,
and I didn't recognize it until I got kind of pressed into that. So that had kind of become an idol. Um, I idolized a little bit of just like safety, security, and
sure.
comfort, and all of those. And even though my job wasn't easy, but like I knew how to do it pretty easily and could just keep on going. And so yeah, the Lord really challenged all of that. And so this leap of faith, um, which I think is a little harder when you're in your 50s, of
Sure.
like stepping out. What wasn't easy at first, but man, Dr. Kim, when I got over a little bit of that ego hit and some of that rawness of facing my idols in the midst of that, and when I got on the other side of that, holy smokes, the Lord was so gracious, and it just became so apparent, and that then it wasn't hard at all. It was like,
Mm,
"Yes, Lord,
so good.
you have been so gracious." And so then it wasn't hard.
Yeah,
And saying goodbye is hard. All of those things are hard, but it wasn't hard because, oh my gosh, I trust the Lord, and I'm so
yeah,
excited for what He has for us.
yeah, absolutely. No, and I love that you use the word idol because I think we all have idols, I think, that we haven't recognized as idols, and I've it's interesting you
Mhm.
said that because I've been dealing with that and trying to discover what ones I have and those things like that because I think, I don't have a Buddha in my house. I don't have an idol,
Right,
but
right,
but
right.
but our idols are so much more subtle
They
and the
are.
way you described it, I think can really help people see that maybe just a soul search with the Lord of the
Yeah,
Lord, are there idols in my life? Is there
yeah.
something that I'm hanging on to that has taken the place of you? And
Mhm.
for me, I think now it's like that's got to be a pretty consistent soul search with the Lord for me
Yeah,
because I've
yeah,
discovered, like I think you did, that yeah, because you don't think you being comfortable in your job, well, that's kind of nice. That's kind of what I
yeah.
worked for,
Right,
and
right.
I think some people are going to stay in that. The
Yeah,
Lord's going to keep them there and do
yeah.
that. But even if they do that, where am I putting that in my life as opposed to my
Uh,
relationship with Him?
that's right.
Right?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
so good.
Yeah, it's those motives, that I think when we allow ourselves to go there with the Lord, what I have found is typically not the thing, it's typically the motive that drives towards the thing.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
it's when we find ourselves and allow ourselves to go to those spaces, um, which which I think is hard because it gets kind of dark, when we
Yeah,
really start inspecting some of those motives and allowing the words to come out to say, "Yeah, I actually think I trust myself more than I trust God."
yeah.
And letting that come out and say, "Oof, did what?" It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, that's very uncomfortable, and I don't like saying that, but that's kind of how my life's been operating, and so what would it look like to trust you, Lord, more? And that doesn't always mean, like, sell everything and, move
right.
into a mono it doesn't mean that. I think the Lord will invite us into our own journey in that space, and allowing Him, and that kinda goes back to that word surrender, and surrendering to Him, and
Mhm.
again, going back to Willard, that John Mark Comer has written so much stuff in this, but it's that simple of being with Jesus, becoming like Jesus, and doing what Jesus did,
Yeah,
is the goal. And it's like to go back to those quiet times you were talking about, and that chair that's
yeah,
here, that's being with Jesus. And then that shouldn't just be intellectual, that shouldn't just be knowledge, that should get transformed into being like Jesus. Your first question of what do I want people to see is like there's something about this guy that's different. Um,
Yeah.
and then it's doing what Jesus would do if he were me.
Yeah.
And I think that's the journey that he has us on. If we'll accept that invitation, and I do think it's an invitation, like he's not going to force us.
Right.
It's just an invitation to do, and so yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's important for us to see too, that he does give us a choice there,
Hmm.
um, and that he doesn't push us into it, because he wants us to know that we made that decision, and that
Hmm.
we find him there. He is there in that when we make that. He's there before, but
Yep,
if you make that decision, then he's going to be there to help you whatever needs to happen next,
that's
whatever
right.
your next steps are in that.
That's right.
I want to switch to technology
Yeah,
just for a
yeah.
second because you've worked in that world for a long time now.
Long
So,
time.
and you hear so much in our culture, what are kids doing? Are they going to be able to write to each other?
Hmm.
Screens and FaceTimes and
Hmm.
all that. So has working technology changed the way you personally relate to people at all?
Mm, mm. Yeah. Um, Man, so much good, and so much not good. I think that
Yeah.
there's tensions, there's tensions in it all. Um, I think that, um te technology, for the most part, I think is neutral, like money.
Yep.
Money's neutral. It can be used for really good things, and it can be used for really bad things. Um, and so I do think for the most part, tech is neutral. Holy smokes, just thinking about what tech has done for the Bible,
Oh, yeah.
way more and way earlier than the creation of YouVersion. Like technology in and of
Hmm.
itself, took the Bible, which, wasn't 66 books canonized, into a book that's really more of like a library. This was something that was spoken, that
Yeah.
then eventually got written down, and then we know the printing press, and we know all of that. Like technology existed, way before the internet, that got the Bible to it. But then, holy smokes, the internet, and then YouVersion, and I know personally the growth in my own life of having God's word near to me and
Mm.
accessible to me, and um just changed who I am. One of my one of one is very, very personal to me, but my most exciting testimony was, I remember when my father-in-law, Robin's dad, who Christian his whole life pretty much,
Hmm.
um, called me on his BlackBerry. That kind of tells you how long ago it was,
I
Dr.
guess
Kim. So some people listening to this might not know what a
they may
BlackBerry
not
is.
know what a BlackBerry
Uh,
is.
but he called me on his BlackBerry, and he says, "Terry, you're never gonna believe it." I'm like, "What's up, Ken?" And he's like, "I read the whole Bible cover to cover for the very first time in my life." Like, "Wow, Ken, that's awesome." He's like, "No, no, 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 no. I have been trying to do this for a decade and have never been able to do it. And it's only possible because of YouVersion." Like
Wow.
that story resonated, and he did it every day on his BlackBerry, this small
Yep.
monochromatic black screen. Um, but but it was because it was with him everywhere he went, and he
Yeah.
was a salesman, and kind of the plumbing space, and out and about all the time. But he had it with him everywhere that he went, and it was accessible, and he was able to read it cover to cover. And I watched how the Bible continually transformed his life, and I've seen that in so many and in me, and so I think that's a beautiful thing.
Mm.
Um, but I also think this phone, um, we can look at study after study after study of just humanity as a whole and see all of these new things. And holy smokes, your world in a counseling, you deal with this probably every day, and your
Yeah.
counselors tell you deal with this every day of the downside and the dark sides of an ever connected life into a glowing screen that always wants to throw stuff our way, driven by algorithms from social media companies, that you are the product and
Yeah.
all of the downsides that come from that. And there's some really dark stuff that comes from that. I see it in kids. I see it in my daughters when they were younger, and a daughter today that's still, you know, is driven by kind of what the world wants us to see,
Sure.
and so yes, beautiful things, really challenging things that come with it. And I think that's only growing at a pace called AI, which
Yeah.
is a whole new thing in front of us that will challenge humanity at a rate greater, in my opinion, than humanity has ever been challenged before. So the need for centeredness, the need for Jesus, the need to have these things that we've talked about, habits in our lives, and centeredness on those type things, and ability to to find silence and solitude and understand like that is going to be more important now than ever, because I think humanity is going to be challenged more than we have ever seen
I agree.
in the history of our day, with the technology that is coming into reality today.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you're right. None of us really know where that's going to go.
Mm.
And it seems like it's happening. It seems like I heard about AI and I heard about AI, and then all of a sudden we're right in the middle of it. And
Yeah.
I heard a guy say, that I was listening to speak, and he said, wherever AI is today, it's the worst it'll ever be,
Hmm.
because even tomorrow,
Yeah.
something's going to grow. And I think you're right. I think from the time Jesus came, it's like we got to stay centered on him,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, no matter what we face. And when we do, I think it's so much easier to fight those battles every day,
Hmm. It
and
is.
to maybe have some clarity on
Hmm.
how we handle these things,
Yeah.
with ministry, with life, all those
Yeah.
kind of things.
Yeah.
So it's a new challenge for us, and I
It is.
think you're right. I think it's probably the biggest challenge that mankind has ever had, because
Hmm.
it's global
Yeah. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
every way.
And I have more faith, I have more confidence, and I have more belief in the creator of it all, who
Yeah.
sits above it all. And so my narrative is one of positive, because I've read the end of the book, and
Right.
I know who's in charge of it all. Um, but I do think we are going to be tested, and the wilderness of sorts, if you will, is going to be more dry and more challenged,
Hmm.
and we've got more coming at us, which should draw those of us that do know him, more centered on him, and prayerfully, um, drawing more people to finding like centeredness in Christ.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It makes such a difference.
Mm, mm,
Sometimes I think about Terry, it overwhelms me. And then I also have to keep thinking God's bigger than all of this,
that's right.
because
That's right.
none of us really have the answer, but He
Hmm.
does.
He
And
does.
I think it goes back to what you said, being obedient, listening,
Hmm.
being willing to do what He asks us to do.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right. Last question.
Yeah.
What do you hope
Okay.
people say? What do you hope people say about you long after the work is done?
I'm drawn, Dr. Kim, to make a difference. And I think what's most important to me is hearing, man, I remember when Terry stopped me in the hall and encouraged me with dot, dot, dot. Man, I
Yeah.
remember when I was having a bad day and he didn't even know it, but this happened. Um, uh, it's in the small things.
Yeah.
I um I think I think the easy part is feeling like the legacy is going to be in the big things that I've got to be a part of, and the Lord's allowed me to be a part of a lot of big things. But what I wanna I wanna be known for the small little things that I did for those people right around me, um, that, would pretty much go unseen to most. I think that's what's more important to me, and just living my life in a way that I'm okay with being interrupted. I'm okay with stepping
Yeah.
into that and speaking into that person's life and caring enough in that moment. And I can't. Much of what I'm saying right now is still aspirational for me. I'm not there, but that's the person I want to become, and that's what I'm working hard on, allowing the Lord to to continue to transform me into becoming that person, that looks a lot like Jesus,
Yeah.
and prayerfully would do a lot of the things Jesus would do as if he were me. So
Yeah.
that's
It's so
that's what I
good.
want to be known for.
Yeah, and I think that's because when we do that, then it affects somebody, and then hopefully they're going to pass that on,
Mm,
and it becomes contagious. And all
mhm,
the things you said, being willing to be interrupted,
mm,
taking time to, just say hi to somebody that nobody says
yep,
hi to,
yep,
or just encourage them.
mm,
I thought you've always been an encourager to me with everything we
mm,
did from the time we started
mm,
off the marriage, and you've been so helpful in your wisdom. And I'm reading something in the Bible app in the morning, and
mhm.
you like it, and so it's like,
Yeah, yep, yeah.
it's, but those kind of things, I think, in the big picture, make a difference,
Mm,
because
mm,
that's, I would say, very similar. That's what I want. I want
mm,
people to remember, I think I saw Jesus in him sometimes,
that's
the
right.
more the better,
Yep. Yep.
It's
It's
great.
good. It's good.
Terry, thank
Yeah.
you. This has been an
Yeah.
awesome conversation. I
It's
appreciate you
awesome.
taking time to join us. Looking forward for all of us to hear your next step,
Mhm.
because it's
Yeah.
going to be something we're all going to be excited about too, I
Me
think.
too. Me too. So much fun. Thank you so much for this, and
You bet.
it's always a pleasure.
All right. Thanks, Terry.
Bye.
Bye. So thanks for joining me today on the Wider Lens podcast. Next month, Ryan Wickerman will be joining me. We're going to talk about his book, Free Me From Me, Escaping the Maze of Self-Centeredness by Embracing a God-Centered Life. This is a powerful podcast. Also on the Awesome Marriage podcast, Ron Deal will be joining me as we talk about blended families. I'm going to do a couple of episodes on narcissism. Emerson Edgrich joins me. We'll talk about his new book, Light Bulb Moments in Marriage. Nancy and I will be talking about navigating bad days without making them bad marriages, and so much more. Thank you so much for being part of the Wider Lens podcast. We'll see you next month.